Yo, let me tell you about a dude straight out of Harlem. Name's Cameron, but they call him Killacam for a reason. See, Cam wasn't just another rapper. He was different, unique, a true original. From his flamboyant style to his street-smart lyrics, Cameron changed the game. He brought a whole new flavor to hip-hop, and trust me, the game ain't been the same since. Cameron emerged from the concrete jungle of Harlem. It's a place where dreams are made and broken. But Cam, he had that hunger, that drive to make it out. He used his environment to fuel his rhymes. His words painted vivid pictures of street life. They were raw, real, and unapologetically Harlem. Cameron's style was bold. He rocked pink furs and flipped the script on what a rapper should look like. He wasn't afraid to be himself. He challenged the norms and made it cool to be different. He was a trendsetter, a fashion icon, a true original. But it wasn't just the clothes or the lyrics. It was Cameron's confidence, his swagger, that undeniable charisma. He had that it factor. He commanded attention every time he stepped in the room, and when he grabbed the mic, the whole world listened. Harlem, man. It's more than just a place. It's a vibe, a culture, a way of life. And Cameron, he embodied that Harlem spirit to the fullest. Growing up in the streets, he learned to hustle, to survive, to stand his ground. Those streets, they were his classroom. They taught him lessons you couldn't learn in no school. Cameron, he wasn't born with a silver spoon. He had to grind for everything he got. He saw the good, the bad, and the ugly side of life at a young age. But through it all, he kept his head up. He had dreams, big dreams, and he wasn't going to let nothing stop him. The streets were his playground. They were also his battleground. He saw friends come and go. He experienced loss, betrayal, the harsh realities of life in the concrete jungle. But those experiences, they shaped him. They made him stronger, more resilient. They gave him stories to tell, stories that would later resonate with millions. See, Cameron, he never forgot where he came from. He carried Harlem on his back, repping his hood with pride. His music became the soundtrack to the streets. His lyrics, they were like chapters from his life, raw and uncut. He gave a voice to the voiceless, spoke for the ones who couldn't speak for themselves. In his early days, Cameron was part of the group Children of the Corn, alongside Big L and Mace. These relationships were pivotal, shaping his path in the hip-hop world. Big L's mentorship and Mace's friendship were crucial in his journey from the playground to the concrete jungle. Cameron, he always had that gift of gab. The way he could string words together, create vivid pictures with his rhymes, it was captivating. He started out young, battling other MCs on street corners, honing his skills, perfecting his flow. Word started spreading about this kid from Harlem with the sharp tongue and even sharper lyrics. He linked up with his childhood friend Mace. Now, Mace, he was already making noise in the industry, signed to Bad Boy Records. He recognized the talent in Cam and put him on his track, Horse and Carriage. That song, it was a problem. It put Cameron on the map. People started paying attention to this new voice. He had a different style, a unique flow. His lyrics were street-smart, witty, and often hilarious. He wasn't afraid to be himself, to talk about his life, his experiences, no matter how raw or real they were. But Cameron, he wasn't content with just being featured on someone else's track. He had his own vision, his own stories to tell. He signed with Epic Records and dropped his debut album, Confessions of Fire. The album was a success, going gold and establishing Cameron as a force to be reckoned with in the hip-hop game. Before his solo success, Cameron also wrote for Junior Mafia, showcasing his versatility. It was during this time that he met the notorious Big, who recognized his potential. Biggie's mentorship and belief in Cameron's talent further fueled his ambition to make his mark in the industry. Now, let's talk about Cameron's music. When he dropped Come Home With Me in 2002, the game changed. That album was a monster. It went double platinum with hits like Oh Boy and Hey Ma. Those songs were everywhere. You couldn't escape them. And trust me, you didn't want to. Oh Boy was an anthem. That beat was infectious, and Cameron's flow was impeccable. He was on fire, spitting those catchy lyrics that would get stuck in your head for days. And Hey Ma, man, that song was smooth. It was the perfect blend of street and seductive, with Cameron's signature wit and charm shining through. But Cameron, he wasn't a one-hit wonder. He followed up Come Home With Me with another classic, Purple Haze. That album was a masterpiece. It showcased his growth as an artist, his lyrical prowess, and his willingness to experiment with different sounds. From the soulful samples to the hard-hitting beats, Purple Haze was a sonic journey. Songs like Killacam and Down and Out became instant classics. They cemented Cameron's status as one of the greats. He wasn't just a rapper anymore. He was an icon. Diplomatic immunity, building an empire with the dips. Cameron, he wasn't just about building his own career. He was about uplifting his crew, his team, his family. He formed the Diplomats, also known as Dipset, with Jim Jones, Jules Santana, and Freaky Seymour. These dudes were like the Justice League of Harlem, each with their own unique style and lyrical prowess. The Diplomats took the game by storm. They had that raw energy, that street swagger, that undeniable chemistry. They were more than just a rap group. They were a movement. They represented Harlem, they represented hustle, they represented loyalty. They dropped their debut album, Diplomatic Immunity, in 2003. That album was a classic. It was a showcase of their individual talents and their undeniable chemistry as a group. It was raw, uncut, and unapologetically Harlem. The Diplomats, they weren't just making music, they were building an empire. They started their own record label, Diplomat Records, and signed other artists from their neighborhood. They were giving back to their community, providing opportunities for other young talents to shine. Cameron's collaborations with Jim Jones and Dame Dash were crucial in building the Dipset empire. Together they strategized and expanded their influence in the music industry. But it wasn't just the clothes. It was his attitude, his confidence, his swagger. He carried himself like a king, and people were drawn to his undeniable charisma. He was the epitome of cool. Cameron's influence on hip-hop culture was undeniable. He changed the way rappers dressed, the way they talked, the way they carried themselves. He inspired a whole generation of artists to be themselves, to embrace their individuality, and to never be afraid to stand out. His iconic pink fur coat, in particular, left an indelible mark on fashion, symbolizing boldness and individuality. And let's not forget his Reebok shoe deal, which further cemented his status as a fashion trailblazer. Beyond the mic movies, businesses, and keeping it 100. Cameron, he was a hustler at heart. He knew that the music industry wasn't forever, so he diversified his portfolio, venturing into other businesses and exploring his acting chops. He starred in movies like Paid in Full and Kill a Season, showcasing his natural acting talent and his ability to bring his street-smart persona to the big screen. In Paid in Full, Cameron played the role of Rico, a character inspired by real-life Harlem drug dealer Alpo Martinez. His performance was praised for its authenticity and intensity. He also launched his own clothing line, Dipset USA, and even dipped his toes into the tech world with his own mobile app. But through it all, Cameron remained true to himself. He never compromised his integrity or his authenticity. He kept it 100, always speaking his mind, even if it ruffled a few feathers. He was never afraid to call out hypocrisy, to challenge the status quo, to stand up for what he believed in. He was a voice for the voiceless, a champion for the underdogs, a true original. Recently, Cameron has also made waves with his involvement in the It Is What It Is show, further cementing his legacy in the entertainment world. The unapologetic aura of Cameron, love him or hate him. Cameron, he was a polarizing figure. You either loved him or you hated him. There was no in-between. He was outspoken, opinionated, and never one to back down from a challenge. He had a sharp wit and a quick tongue. He wasn't afraid to speak his mind, even if it meant ruffling a few feathers. He called out hypocrisy, challenged the status quo, and always kept it real. Some people criticized his flamboyant style, his street-smart lyrics, his unapologetic persona. But that was Cameron. He was true to himself, and he didn't care what other people thought. He embraced his individuality, his uniqueness, his authenticity, and that's what made him so captivating. He was a breath of fresh air in a genre that often felt formulaic and predictable. His beefs with 50 Cent, Nas, and Jay-Z only added to his legend. He never shied away from confrontation, using his lyrical prowess to take on some of the biggest names in hip-hop. The legend of Killa Cama legacy etched in purple. Cameron, man, he left an undeniable mark on hip-hop. He was a true original, an innovator, a legend. From his music to his style to his unapologetic persona, he changed the game forever. He brought a new flavor to hip-hop, a unique blend of street swagger, flamboyant fashion, and witty lyricism. He wasn't afraid to be himself, to push boundaries, to challenge the norms. His music was a reflection of his life, his experiences, his environment. He gave a voice to the voiceless, spoke for the ones who couldn't speak for themselves. He was the voice of the streets, the king of Harlem. Cameron's legacy extends far beyond the music. He was a cultural icon, a trendsetter, an inspiration to a generation of artists. He taught us to be ourselves, to embrace our individuality, and to never be afraid to stand out from the crowd. So, yeah, Cameron, he was more than just a rapper. He was a movement, a force of nature, a true original. Beyond music, Cameron thrived as a business mogul, launching successful ventures in fashion, film, and more.